Alright, so this is going to be part 2 to what if Asta had dark magic. So with that being said, let's just roll the intro.
Treat a bad bitch like she average. I'm a savage, little hoe, what you want, do? I'm about cash if the raw fast. I'ma get that little nigga by any means.
Alright, in the last, part, I asked you guys if it would be okay to have like things like guns for this what if, and most of you were okay with it. So yeah, so that's what I'm going to go with for now. And like I said in the last video, when I do these kind of new Black Clover what ifs, I'm gonna ask in my community tab, so I'm gonna ask you guys for some spells, like I did last time for this what if. So if you see that there is like let's say a new Black Clover what if that I do, you should check the community poll, or not the community poll, but the community tab, and check if I asked you guys for some spells, because that's typically what I'm going to do. And yeah, so in the last part we just got done with the kind of Magic Knights kind of ceremony or exam to kind of get in. So we ended off with Asta basically getting into the Black Bowls. So what would happen is that Finral would use his spatial magic to get him to the Black Bowls hideout faster, since they don't want to go and ride on their brooms. So that's what happened. The same events would still happen where Asta would have to go to the bathroom and Seke would try to curse him with the bronze lizard or whatever, but Yuno would be there to save him. So those events still happen and things like that. So on the way there, Yami would ask Asta about his magic and what it is, and basically he would say that it's dark magic with a little bit of his knowledge of blacksmithing and things like that. So his magic was called Darksmith. So Yami's kind of interested in this since he uses a sword, right? And he tells Asta he's like, all right, later I want you to look at my sword later. That's basically what he tells him. He's like, so Asta would be like, all right, I'd be glad to, right? So they would get to the Black Bull's base, and Asta would be very excited because all of his life he wanted to become a Magic Knight so he could become the Wizard King. So he's very excited, and when he basically opens doors like he usually does in the anime, and he'd be really excited to introduce himself, but what he sees is a bunch of chaos because of Magna and Luck basically fighting. So after all that was done, Finral would introduce all the members of the Black Bulls that were there to Asta, and Asta would be very excited, right? He would say, I'm Asta from Hodge Village. I'm the new recruit, right? Basically, the basic introductions. After this was done, Magna would basically say hey, Yami, let's do the, baptism, right? The ceremony. He's like, then Yami would be like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. All right, you two go outside and do it, right? And Magna would basically say all right, Asta, if you want to be a Black Bull and you want this robe, then you got to go and, do the ceremony. So Asta would do, the physical parts pretty easily, right? Since he was a blacksmith's apprentice and he had to, carry a lot of that heavy equipment, right? So he'd be able to do that pretty easily. So we would get to the last part where he has to, where Magna basically throws fireballs at him, right? So the typical fireballs Asta would be able to easily dodge, just how he does in the anime. But the final shot that Magna does, which I believe is called the firebolt explosion shot. I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but It's a very powerful fire spell, one of Magna's most powerful fire spells. So he charges it up and he's about to throw it at Asta. And what Asta does is that he uses one of the sets that he made of armor, the Demon King armor, but he uses the defense one, right? Because Magna would have told him, like, all right, you could either dodge this, reflect this, or nullify it any way you want, but if you don't do anything, you're gonna die. So Asta, decides to defend it, so he uses that armor, right? So the kind of armor, how it works, it's a mix of the physical materials that Asta made it out of, combined with the magic that flows into it. So yeah, so that's what Asta's like magic would work. So Finral is about to use his his spatial magic to kind of redirect the shot so Asta won't die. But before he could do anything, this is when Yami would basically say, like, no, I'm pretty sure he could handle this, right? Basically, usually what happens is that Finral saves the person, because usually they wouldn't be able to block it or dodge it. But in this case, Asta would be able to do it. So what would happen next is that when this charge fireball would come at Asta, he would basically put his arms in front of his face, and this would basically kind of split it would spread out the damage and not be one point blank. And yeah, he would be able to block it pretty easily, and everyone would be kind of surprised that he was able to do such thing, especially Magna. I think Magna would have a lot of respect for Asta, just how he does in the anime, because he took the hit straight on and didn't flinch. So after this, they would start celebrating because they got a new member, and Asta would get his robe. So the person seeing this would be Noelle at the top of the base, just how she does in the anime. So what happens after this is that it'd be the next day, and they would do those kind of Magna would basically give Asta the tour of the Black Bull's hideout and explain to him all the chores that he would need to do to as a member of the Black Bulls, right? And as they're on this kind of tour, right, Magna would ask Asta about his magic, and he would explain that it's one part dark and other part kind of blacksmiths, right, with a lot of crafting. So basically Magna would ask us, so can you make like stuff for other people? And Asta would be like, well, I never tried it, but I don't see why not. And he'd be like, great, can you make me a suit of armor, right? And Magna would basically give him he would tell him instructions on how to do it, how it should look. And you guys can tell me how it should look. I think it should look like a typical biker, because that's how Magna is, or that's his kind of design. He's supposed to be a delinquent, and he has that's why his broom looks like a bike, like a motorcycle. So yeah. So as they're kind of walking around, this is when they would bump into Noelle, and Asta would basically say, or Magna would explain to Asta that both of you joined at the same time, so you're both rookies. So Asta would, extend his hand out and basically try to shake her hand. But this is when Noelle would smack his hand out of the way and basically say, I don't know what you think Commodore should do, but they shouldn't be able to shake a royal's hand. You might have a lot of magic, but that doesn't change the fact that you're still a commoner. And Asta was like, what are you talking about? And this is when Magna would kind of interrupt and be like, just because you're royal doesn't mean anything here. You're just a Black Bulls and a rookie at that, so you better show some respect to your superior. And this is when Noelle would basically be like, all right, let me show you the difference in power. And this is when she would shoot a water ball, but it would miss Asta and actually hit Magna, just how it does in the anime. So Asta and Magna would be confused on this, and Noelle would just walk off as if she proved her point. So the next day would come, and Asta would go outside looking for the bathroom, just how he does in the anime. And as he's walking around, he sees projectiles flying all over the place, right? And he goes towards that kind of noise. And what he finds is that he finds Noelle shooting a tree, but every time she shoots it, she kind of misses, right? And at this point, Noelle's imagining all the royals and the nobles in her life that have been basically telling her that she's worthless, that she's a mistake, and she's repeating this stuff in her head. And as this is happening, Nero actually lands on Asta's head and rustles some leaves, causing Noelle to notice. When she turns around, Asta's just there, and she's anticipating him basically insulting her because of how she treated him the day before. But before Asta could say anything, this is when she tries to shoot him with some water magic, but it actually backfires and actually starts engulfing her with her own magic, right? And the kind of magic around her would just get bigger and bigger, and the black bulls that are inside the kind of hideout would notice, and they would all come outside. And this is when Yami would be like, she's in that kind of surrounded by magic, so we can't use any attack spells. Let's see if there only was a way to get nearer, right? And he would be like, Funeral, how about you go and get her? And Funeral would be like, what are you talking about? I'm not going anywhere near there. And he's like, let me try to think about this, right? And this is when Asta would land by, right? So he basically would ask Asta, do you have any spells that could drain magic? And Asta would be like, well, I do have one, right? And this is when Yami would be like, all right, that's perfect, let's do a combination spell. So it'd be a combination of black hole and dark snow. Which dark snow in this one I changed it a bit, where it basically drains people's mana instead of instantly killing them like it does in 7 Deadly Sins. So yeah, so I don't know what the combination could be for this one. We could call it something like Eternal Winter or something. But basically it would make this entire area where Noelle is where she's at kind of dark, right? And the snow, instead of being kind of that soft little bit of snow that comes out like in 7 Deadly Sins, it would be it'd basically be like a blizzard, and this would basically drain the magic that's there, right? So after this was done, Noelle would gain consciousness again, and she would think that Asta would insult her for losing control of her magic, but instead he would actually compliment her on how much magic she has, right? And this is when Magna would basically say oh, it doesn't so your problem is that you couldn't control your magic? What's the deal with that? Everyone has a weakness or two, right? We're a team, we're supposed to help each other. And this is when Vanessa would also tell her the same thing, basically, about how she could help her with her magic since she has a lot of control over her magic. So basically, after this was done, Asta would basically say that, hey Noelle, I might be able to make something that helps you with your magic, right? And this is when Noelle will be like, really, Asta, can you do that for me? And he's like, yeah, just give me a few days, right? So after that was done, this is when Yami would basically hey kid, come over here, right? And Asta would be like, what's the matter? And this is when Yami would pull out his sword and he's like, here. And Asta would be like, whoa, I never seen a sword like this, because in Black Clover, the kind of area that they're at, all their kind of it's like a fantasy world, right? But it's like Western fantasy, where they don't have like that kind of Eastern kind of weaponry like how Japan has it, right? So he wouldn't really see a sword like the katana that Yami has. So basically Yami would be like, all right, let's see what you could do with her. And also be like, yeah, okay, I'll try my best, right? So this is when he would ask Yami like how far do you want me to go with this? And Yami would be like, all right, just try to make it as powerful as you can and see what happens, right? So he's like, all right, I'll do it, but I would need Finral for this, right? And he's like, sure, fine, you could borrow Finral. And Finral will be like, what are you talking about? I'm a person, right? And this is when Yami would be like, you want to die? And Finral would be quiet after that. So what happens is that Finral takes Asta to Hajj, because I'm pretty sure he's been near it, or been near the skull before. So yeah, because I believe he actually teleports Nero there before, so he would be close. He would know where it's at. So yeah. So they would go to this demon kind of skull, right? And this is when Finral would be like, why are we here? And Asta would just tell him like, well, we're here to get some raw materials to increase not only the sword but a few other things, right? So Asta would be like, he would just take like a giant piece of a tooth, right? Like entire tooth basically, and he would take that and he would go with Finral back to the Black Bulls, right? So I think at this point Asta would learn a new spell, and I think I would call it Black Forge, and it would basically create this kind of what's it called, a forge, just like a blacksmith, but people can actually add their magic to it to give the properties of that magic to anything that gets created within it. So Finral and Asta would be there, right? And he would ask Magna to come to kind of to add their magic to it, right? So basically Asta would kind of work in the bone with the kind of blade, kind of infusing the two, and he would add some of his magic as well as Finral's and what's it called, as Magna's as well. So each of the magics would be infused within the sword, right? And this is when Asta would also get to work with Magna's kind of suit, right? And at the same time, he would also want to upgrade his rifle. So he would basically get done with Magna's clothes, or not clothes, his armor, and he would obviously infuse it with not only the dark magic but also his own fire magic and some of Finral's magic. And he would ask Finral like, hey, since you're kind of like the escape route for if things go bad, do you want to armor just in case, right? And this is when Finral would be like very thankful for Asta for kind of looking out for him. So he would be like, yeah, sure. So again, he would also make a suit of armor for Finral, right? So depending on the amounts of magic, the ratio, I guess, would depend on like kind of the effects, maybe, I don't know. But let's say that since there's like spatial magic in the armor, that there's like a chance that any projectiles that like hit the user don't actually hit the user, but actually get teleported behind them, right? I'm not gonna say it's like 100% or he's always immune, but there's a percent chance that it would just miss him, right? So for the weapon that, Yami's upgraded, like, weapon, his katana, let's say that there could be, black flames, or even the ability of his slashes to kind of teleport, right? Forward, not really in every direction, but like, let's say he slices at a wall, right? That the slice can actually teleport past the wall and go through whatever, like, something behind it, right? Because if, the advantage for that, because if the wall is stronger than the slice, then he could just teleport it past it and slice whatever is behind it. So that's what I think, right? And it would also give him the advantage of nullifying some spatial magic. So yeah. So after this was done, this is when Yami would come back and take his new sword, and he would be like, well, thanks, I can't wait to try this later, right? And after that, this is when Magna and Yami would basically go to the capital to play poker and then lose. So after that, Asta, Noelle, and Magna would have to go to Saussy village to help out with the boar problem, right? So what happens is that they would get there a little bit sooner than they do in the anime, since Asta has control over his magic, and he has magic, so he could fly by himself or with Noelle, and Magna wouldn't be as tired as he was in the anime. But the chief would still die because they wouldn't arrive too soon for them to save him, and the town would still be kind of he would be covered by the fog. So they would have to land in the center by using their brooms, right? So when they get there, this is when they meet up with the mages from the Midnight Sun. This is when Asta would question the mages and say, like, why are you doing this? These are just innocent people. And the mage would explain to Asta that these are, they're basically like animals, because in that world, magic is a tool, and things that don't use tools are like animals, or at least that's what the kind of anime kind of explains it. And he would give an example to Asta, basically saying, like, look at you are, you have so much magic to become a, even a magic knight. So why should you be protecting these people? And he would say that, one day it's going to be my job to protect over all the citizens, because they're going to be my citizens, because I'm going to become the Wizard King. And the mage would be like, a runt like you becoming the Wizard King? Don't make me laugh, right? And he would basically say, like, well, you're going to get me off schedule, so let's end this quickly. So this is when he would, like, spawn a bunch of icicles aiming at Asta. So what Asta would do is that he would go into his like defense armor, and what he would do after that is that he would take out his rifle and kind of shoot at the different icicles, because when he uses the rifle in his defense, it becomes like a scatter shot or like a shotgun kind of. So in the combination of like shooting all those icicles and the kind of Magna being there to kind of support Asta, right, it'd be kind of easy to defeat these mages. But as a last ditch effort, the kind of mages would use kind of sneak attacks to kind of hit the civilians behind Magna and Asta by spawning the the icicles behind them. But because of this is when Noelle kind of unlocks her spell. I think it's called like Sea Dragon's Cradle or something. That kind of like dome that kind of protects them, right? So she would still learn that kind of spell at that point. And as this is happening, this is when Asta would kind of switch to his speed armor and kind of go around the kind of mages and kind of like try to blitz them. And he would use dark snow to kind of drain them of their magic as like a passive thing and kind of wear them down. And at the same time, this is when Magna would still be shooting fireballs at them, and he would use his prison death scatter shot. And the main mage there that could have protected the others would be too distracted with Asta kind of blitzing him, so they would get trapped, just how they do in the anime. And what happens after this is that they would find out, no, they wouldn't really find out, but he would basically after a while, he would gain consciousness again, and Magna would be like, all right, we're gonna get all the information out of you at the capital. And this is when he would use that kind of item to kind of kill themselves, just how they do in the anime. But that one mage would still escape using his magic, because he was able to get out of there even though he was binded. So yeah, after that was done, they would still meet up with the grandchild of the village chief, and they would get the magic stone because of Nero getting it, and everything would kind of end similar to how it was in the anime. So I'm gonna end it here, and then in the next kind of part we'll go over the dungeon. And a lot of people wanted spirits in this one, and most of my what ifs, they want spirits, so I'm gonna kind of go with that. So with that being said, this is going to be the end of the video. So yeah,